Good night, everyone. Welcome to Campus São Paulo. Welcome to Campus Expert Summit. I'm Fernanda, Program Manager here at campus. So if it's your first time watching us or here with us, welcome. We have these 2 amazing weeks where we are hosting a group of Googlers super talented in many areas. And we're going to talk about today with super interesting topic for you that has an app, or for you that thinks about having an app. So let's take a peek into what's next in our plans for Google Play. And with us we have Tenzin Taylor, directly from Google London, but originally from Australia. So she's gonna host us in this tour today. Thank you so much for being here, Tenzin. And this video will be recorded and will stay in our channel. So if you wanna watch it later and any other event at Expert Summit, you can just go at our youtube.com/campus and you'll find everything there. So enjoy and see you later.
Hi everyone, thank you very much, Faye. Okay, who here has an Android app? Awesome, I'm so glad to see that. Who here is thinking of building an Android app? Fantastic, Googler in the audience. So hopefully today you will leave here with some of the tools that you need to make your life easier and to build an incredible Android app that can reach billions of people. Does that sound good? Yeah. Excellent. Now, I'm quite aware that I'm standing between you and dinner and drinks. I'm sorry. I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. And after the session, there'll be the chance for questions. So, what is next for Google Play? Well, in the next, say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how much I get distracted, I'm going to cover basically the scope of potential on Android. I'll cover some of the tools that we have to help you work for free. That's a good word, isn't it? And then I'll touch on a bit of what's going to happen in the future. Now, this is the exciting part, so I've left it to the end to keep you going. Now, it's you, the developers, who bring our Android ecosystem to life. There are so many great apps out there, and the quality and the breadth are only increasing. It's really your imagination that creates the ecosystem that gives customers what they want. And our job, at least in Google Play for business development, is to help you realize your ambition and help you execute on your imagination. Now, you know, Android is a massive platform and it touches everyone. I know that, for example, some of my favorite apps include Instagram, and here's a screenshot of our friend Ryan's Instagram page from Google, if you'd like to follow him. And this game that's called Rain, which is a really simple decision tree game. Now, this is not for everyone, right? But it's definitely good for me. And this is just one example of how applications on Google Play are for everyone. Now, that's just a really small snapshot into some of the apps we have. And we know that apps are integral for our everyday life. All you have to do is look at someone's phone and you can get a real good insight into who they are based on what icons they have on their front screen. For me, for example, the Ocado app, which is a grocery shopping app, is essential for managing my life. My husband, he puts stuff in, I put more stuff in, and magically it arrives at our house. Fantastic. And, you know, it's really important because we have so many apps on the Play Store. We have, I think it's like 1 million apps on the Play Store. It's really important for us that we make sure your app is discoverable by the right user at the right time. And we use a lot of machine learning for that. If anyone attended, I think it was Onome's presentation on machine learning the other day, then she shows you how we're using this within the Google Play Store to ensure that we're surfacing the right kind of apps to the right people. And, you know, apps can create a phenomenal experience. The biggest app for last year was by far and away Pokemon Go. Who here downloaded and played Pokemon Go? Did anyone walk into something while they were playing it? Did anyone get mugged? No, I hope not. So really, when you look at Pokemon Go, you think, what's it made from? It's augmented reality. Now, had anyone heard of or used augmented reality in an Android app before Pokemon Go? A couple of people. I actually worked on building an Android app that had augmented reality before this happened, and everyone was like, oh, it's a bit of a, I don't understand how to use it, you know. What Pokemon Go has done is single-handedly changed the way millions of people experience and understand augmented reality. Now, this is fantastic. It's great for you. Why? Because they've basically educated the market and they've created a whole new game genre. So now if you launch an app with augmented reality, the chances are more people are going to understand what it is and they'll be willing to pay for it. As you can see here, Pokemon Go, they reckon they've made about $1 billion in worldwide gross revenue to date, so that's very impressive. Now, as I said, Android platform is massive, and we're really building out so that more people can find an app that suits them. Now, that's all well and good. The Android ecosystem is massive, but the question you should be asking me is, well, that's Pokemon Go. What about my app? How is Android, how is Play helping you succeed on the platform? So I'll touch on a couple of areas. The first is that we will help you distribute to a global audience, and the second are the tools that we can help you to build, test, distribute, and then make money on Google Play. So if anyone was here at my last talk, you've probably recognised these figures. We have over 1.4 billion active monthly users. That's incredible, 1.4 billion. We have 400 partner OEMs who are developing for Android. When we say OEMs, we mean handset manufacturers, that kind of thing. We have over 500 operator partnerships. By operators, we mean telecommunications companies. And we have over 1.5 million Android devices being activated every single day. Now, if you think about it, that's quite a lot, but it's only going to get bigger. So let me go back a step. Before I move on, I know I said this stat in my last talk, but by 2020, they forecast that 80% of the world's population will be connected to an internet-connected smartphone. That's 80% of the world's population. When I looked it up, the world's population in 2020 is estimated to be about 7 billion and a bit. Therefore, 80% is 6 billion. Today, we're at about 4 billion. So this is a huge number. It's only 3 years away. So I reckon that 1.5 million devices activated every day is just going to explode. It's going to get much bigger. And the majority of those smartphones, they'll be Android. Now, that's all well and good. We've got this massive, huge audience. Everyone loves that. Big addressable market. But the question you should be asking yourself is, can they pay? Because it's all well and nice to have lots of customers using your platform, but unless they're paying you, it's a struggle. So the good news is that we are continually investing in our platform. At the moment, there are over 130 countries that you can sell to, and we have launched over 115 direct carrier billing deals. Now, you might say, what? What's a direct carrier billing deal? So in countries like Brazil or Germany, where perhaps people don't have lots of credit cards or are concerned about privacy, we have another form of payment. Who here has a carrier contract or has prepaid card? Yep, everyone. So you can actually, in many instances, charge your Google Play app content to your phone bill, which is even better if someone else is paying for your phone bill, right? So this really unlocks a huge number of people who can then pay for your content. Actually, we only crossed the 100th carrier milestone probably about 3 months ago, and there was this big argument between our teams because the argument was it the EMEA team or was it the APAC team who got the 100th deal? The EMEA team said, well, we got Vodafone connected, and Vodafone is everywhere in Europe. The APAC team says, no, we brought Idea on board, which is India's largest carrier. I can't remember how many customers they have, but it's in the billions. So the good news for you, though, is that over 600 million people can now pay for content, and this will make your life easier if you want to make money on Google Play. And as we're opening up more and more markets, what we're seeing is a humongous growth in emerging markets. We're seeing that there's 4 times the volume of absolute downloads in emerging markets compared to the more established ones, and twice the speed of consumer spend, which you might think makes sense given that they're just coming on board now. So there's a huge market potential, and you might be saying to yourself, that's great, but how do I take advantage of that? So the next section I'll take you through is how you can succeed on Google Play. I've only taken a snapshot of some of the most important things because we don't have all day, because you probably want to go for dinner. So the first one is the Play console, previously known as the Google Play Developer Console. Who here uses, the people who have an Android app, put your hands up again. How many of you use the Developer Console? Okay, there's definitely not the same number of hands. If I can give you one thing to take away to the people who have an Android app, you must use the Play Developer Console, Play Console as it's now been rebranded. And the reason for this is it's not just for developers. It has so much information in there to help you manage your business. If anyone has attended the sessions on data or understanding your business, then this is your one-stop shop to really have some free data. It's not just for engineers. If you're worried, put your hands up at those who have an Android app. How many of you are engineering? 1, okay. For the rest of you, it's fantastic. You can go in there and you can see statistics, you can run A/B tests on your store listing page, you can understand your user acquisition funnel, the list goes on. And the great thing is, if you're in charge of the developer console and you're worried that someone might delete your APK, you can actually set authorization so that people have view-only access. The other thing I want to tell you about is the new software operating system called Android O. You might be familiar with the past editions of this, so Nougat, Marshmallow, Lollipop. This is the latest one which has just come out. So if you are going to build for Android, you can take advantage of some of the new kit that allows you to create a much better product. Because we are making much more efforts to help people in emerging markets get connected, it's really important for us that applications on the Play Store do not suck battery unnecessarily, that they're much better performing applications. As a result, what we've done is we've launched things like background limitations. So if your app is running in the background, it uses less data and less battery power, which means it's better for the user. Similarly for location update restrictions, it pings less if your application's in the background. We've got new channels for notifications, again, to give a better user experience. And my favourite, autofill API. Who here really enjoys filling out forms on their mobile phone? There's one guy up there. I knew it'd be you. Everyone hates it, and we now have this API to make it much quicker for a user to enter their details in your app seamlessly. Everything we do is to reduce friction for the users. We also have adaptive icons. What's that, you might ask? So, interestingly, in many different countries, we have many different operators and people have different tastes. Adaptive icons let you change the shape and colour of your icon for different devices, if it's relevant for them. So there's a whole lot more that comes with this new release. I'd encourage you to check it out. It gives you an advantage over your competitors if your app is running better and smarter. Okay, of the Android apps that are either live or planned, how many of you want to charge consumers directly? Hands up. Okay, a few of you. So one of the ways in which you can charge customers through Play is through subscriptions. Now, if anyone here has a gym membership, you're probably familiar with the idea of a subscription. But what we see is that they are absolutely booming. Subscriptions have only been around on Play for about 5 years, and you can see the scale of growth. We actually did some research of our users in the UK and the US to find out what do they think about subscriptions. And the 3 key things they told us. Free trials and discounts are really important for user acquisition. Valuable and fresh content keeps people coming back. I know in a previous session we talked about retention. Retention is key, and it's obviously cheaper to keep a customer that you already have than go and acquire a new one. So how can you do that? Keep your content fresh, as well as making sure the product runs smoothly and doesn't crash. 44% of all people they surveyed said that they would be coming back more often if the content was fresh. And thirdly, just as an aside, people are willing to pay for content. So the research we did found that the sweet spot was between $5 and $20. Clearly that's US dollars, and it will obviously depend on your market. With purchasing power parity, it might be different for Brazil, but that gives you some kind of taster of the report. Now, that's great, you might say, fabulous, I'm going to go and build a subscription engine. Well, you don't have to. So part of the service that Play provides for developers is a payment processing platform. So you can focus on your core business and leave all the heavy lifting of the payments to us, because do you really want to be a payments processor? No, it's quite boring. So some of the things that we give you to help you manage your subscription business, from integration, sign-up, retention, all the way to management. I'm going to just call out a couple of my favourites here because there's lots on this slide. The first one is introductory pricing. Now, the best way to get a, qualified lead is to get them to pay something up front. And with introductory pricing, you can say to a user, I will give you my service for like the discounted price of R5 a month for 3 months. Thereafter, it just goes into the normal R15 a month. So this is an automated system that we do for you so that you can actually give customers an easier way to try your product. There's heaps more in there, but the one that I really like, of course, are churn metrics. And if you watch the I/O stream in May, when we announce a whole raft of new things around this area, I can't tell you what they'll be now because I will ruin my surprise, but I can tell you they are super, super exciting. Like, really exciting. So you must watch that. It's called Making Data Work for You on Play, on the Thursday that I/O is on. Now, something I covered in my last talk, but I think it's worth mentioning again, is recruiting beta testers. Now, of the people who put their hand up having an Android app, how many of you have a beta community? 2 people? So when you want to test an application, you need a bunch of people to test it on, right? And if you have, or for those people who are thinking about building an Android app, you don't have any customers. So how can you get that critical mass of feedback, more so just from your mum and dad? Because let's face it, your mum and dad probably aren't that technically savvy. And maybe you've given them a really high-end smartphone for Christmas. To get a really broad scope of users, then you really need our help. So what we decided to do was launch a program called Early Access. If you have a new app, you can apply to put it in this channel. Everyone in the world can download your app. That's everyone in the world. I spoke about the 1.4 billion monthly active users. And they're from all over the world. And they have all types of devices operating on all types of connectivity. And they will feed back to you their experience of the app in private without impacting your star rating. So this is critical, right? You can get the feedback, you can identify where your problem areas are, and you can fix them before you put your app into production. Because once you put your app into production, that's when you get real ratings. And trust me, you don't want 1-star ratings, do you? No, very bad. So I'd encourage you to look at this program. Join the program today. One developer who's seen great success is SpaceApe. So SpaceApe is a fantastic games company. They are fully invested in data. And for a games company, if you didn't know, they they really spend a lot of time understanding their retention in day 0, 1, 7, and 30 in the very early stages of testing the game. And if the retention is bad, they kill the app. So for these guys, getting that data as soon as possible before they launch the app is absolutely critical. And what did they see? Double-digit growth in day 1 retention, because they could get the feedback quickly and work out what they needed to tweak before going live. So we talked about testing, we talked about making money, and the final thing I'll talk about in this section is how you get discovered. Many people say to me, I've launched an app, but I can't see it on the Play Store. And I can't tell you today, I can't reveal the secrets of the algorithm, I'm sorry. But what I can say, if you have some money to invest, then we have something called universal search ads in Google Play, so that your app can be surfaced when people search for your brand. Okay, now we get to the exciting part. Does everyone recognize this image? Looks pretty familiar, right? You've got your phone out and you're touching, swiping, probably walking with your head down. It's a sunset. It's a Brazilian sunset, of course. Not in London. So this is how we've been trained to use our phone. And, if you are old enough to recall the days before smartphones, sadly I do, you might remember how when you got your first smartphone, you're like, oh my God. And the touch idea was just a revolution. It was, trust me. Snake takes on a whole new meaning. So that was great, but we think we're on the cusp of a whole new era of mobile innovation. What we like to think about is it's no longer just about touch. There are whole new ways to interact with your phone. And these are really exciting. The first is beyond the tap, beyond the install, and beyond the phone. And I'll go through each of these as I go along. So, voice is clearly one of the biggest drivers of interaction at the moment. Does anyone here use voice to drive their phone? Excellent. I certainly do. Every morning when I get up, I say, OK, Google. Well, my phone's not here. OK, Google, turn on BBC Radio 4. And it automatically opens up the TuneIn radio app and plays BBC Radio 4, which is great in the morning when I'm tired and I can't see. We also have fantastic things like custom voice actions. So if anyone here uses Shazam, yeah, nice, good. What you can say is, OK, Google, Shazam this song. Now, imagine yourself driving along in the car, listening to the radio, and you hear this great song, and you're like, oh, crap. You have to find your phone, pull it out, unlock the screen, find the Shazam app, open it, hit Shazam, and then the song's over. And you're like, oh. Happens to me all the time. So now with the custom voice action, it just means it's much quicker for you to get to the content as a user, get to the content faster and more simply, with the idea that we help users engage on a more regular basis, more simply. Now, 20% of all queries on the Google app are through voice. And I'm not sure how many of you, because I don't think it's available here, but the Alexa or the Google Home, it just creates a whole new paradigm of content discovery and interaction. I did buy an Alexa when it first came out. It sits in my kitchen. And it's a fascinating experience because you tell it what's the weather, tell me the temperature outside, give me the news, tell me the football scores. And when you first get one of these, you can be a bit cheeky, and I started being a bit cruel to it. And it actually talked back to me and said, oh, I'm still learning. So having one of those moments, is it a machine or is it a person? But I think, what we're going to see is as we move along in time, more and more people are going to be using voice and wondering, why did I ever even need to type anything in? Now, this is the most exciting part for me. Has anyone here seen Minority Report? Great. There's a few people my age in the audience. Fantastic. So you might remember Tom Cruise. This is my dream, right? I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And we're nearly there, but one of my favourite projects at Google is Project Solly from the ATAP team, the Advanced Technology and Platforms team. They've come up with, Solly is basically a seamless interaction type to understand gestureless controls or interaction. And the view is that one day, perhaps, our hand will be the universal input device, which is pretty cool. So what we're doing to support this is we're building a universal gesture language, because as you would appreciate, Brazilians, I know you talk with your hands a lot. Yeah. Whereas Japanese or Finnish people, for example, are, a lot less. So how do you mediate that? How do you create a universal language? It's hard enough just understanding different languages, right? So that's what we're working on. An example of this is like volume control. Turn up, turn down. Now, they're still working on this, so stay tuned for more information, and you'll see, you can check this out if you Google it. But that is my dream, by the way, just my personal mission. Another one which we're really excited about is Google Assistant. If anyone here uses Google Allo, you'll understand how it works. Basically, it's machine learning combined with assistive technology. So my husband often says to me, you want me to download another messaging app? I'm like, yes, Bessa. And then, he discovers that if he asks it for something through voice, it will come up with restaurant recommendations, which he can then send to me. So it's really exciting for us, to test these things out. And it really is helping people's lives by putting content in the context. For us, what we hopefully one day will see is that we can open it up for developers so that your content can again be discovered through this means. Okay, so we talked about the gesture interaction, the voice interaction, the conversational UI. But now I want to talk about something which probably affects everyone. You people with Android apps, it's all about the install, right? But what's the worst thing about the install? It's getting the user to install it. It's getting them into the store to download it. The user has to wait. Then they open it, they're asked permissions, etc., etc. It's not a seamless experience. And yet, if you have content on a mobile website, you can simply, for example, forward someone a link to the page, they open it, and it's there. So we recognise this, and we really want to change it because we want apps to do really well. You've made the investment to build it, and we want to make the investment for you to make it easier for you to get more people using it. So introducing Android Instant Apps. Has anyone heard of Android Instant Apps? Show of hands. A few people? Great. So imagine a scenario where you could access a part of the app without installing it. Imagine not having to install an app and yet get the content that you want and have the same rich, full, native experience. So this is what we've done. Here's an example of B&H Photo. And I need to start from the very beginning and wait for the animation to load. But essentially what you can do is just say you do a search for a camera because you're buying this for your partner's birthday. You do a search on Google, a B&H, which is a retailer in America for electronics, comes up, you click on it, and it takes you instantly into the app, as you can see here. You can then buy it or put it in the cart. You can check out using a variety of ways, as Google Pay. Place the order, and boom, you're done. And you have not downloaded the app, yet you've accessed all the functionality that a native app can offer, including very easy access, permissions, and sign-in. Another example here is from BuzzFeed. This is a recipe app. It's an example of where you can send a link via SMS to a friend and say, I'd really like you to make these cookies for me. And the link directly goes into the screen of the cookies you want the user to make. So, for example, today if you send a link to an app, it takes the user to the Play Store to download the app. It doesn't take them inside the app to the specific recipe you wanted them to make, right? So this way what we're doing is helping you share content and direct people to the specific point in your app which you want to share. So we think this is going to be quite revolutionary, particularly if you have an app where you want lots of social elements. And we think it's going to solve real-world problems as well. Unfortunately, I don't drive, but I have tested this out, which is a parking meter example. Now, imagine you arrive at a parking meter in a car park. And today, for example, you probably have to put money into the machine, get the ticket, walk back to your car. It's quite a painful experience. You might know that you've got 2 hours, but you have to keep checking your watch and run out in case the parking inspectors come. The idea here is you would arrive at the meter, you can tap your NFC-enabled phone onto the meter, it automatically brings up an Android Instant app, because that acts like a URL, right? And then from there, it says, how long do you want? 2 hours, or maybe it's 12. How would you like to pay? Android Pay. And then off you go, confirmed. You go to the restaurant, and maybe you get alerted, at 10 minutes to the hour when your parking meter might expire, and you can update it instantly from the restaurant. That would be great, right? So this is the kind of thing that Android Instant Apps can help you do. Okay, so if you are interested in Android Instant Apps, there'll be more announced at I/O. I'm sorry, this is bad timing. I can't tell you everything today because I/O is in about 4 weeks. But I'd encourage you to watch the live stream. I'm sure it'll be streamed live at Google Campus right here in this room. Now, if you are interested, where should you start? So there's more information on the link there, but number one, remove the bulk, right? The whole idea behind Android Instant Apps is that you can chunk your app into fragments, and each fragment is a URL. A URL is a use case, and that's the URL that gets sent. You might send to customers and say, hey, check out my new house that I've just put on the market, for example. Implement Smart Lock. Smart Lock is a seamless way for users to sign in, and we remember their passwords so they can access it any time across multiple devices. Support runtime permissions for 6.0, and support deep linking, which I'm sure you're already doing because you guys are great. And stay tuned and watch for I/O. Okay, so we've covered a lot so far, but I'll just recap really quickly. We've spoken about how big the market is for Android. It's very exciting. We've spoken about these new interaction types like voice, gesture, conversational UI. And we've spoken about how you can now go beyond the install and you can give your users a seamless experience to access your app content without ever installing it. Now, the next part, it's pretty exciting. So what I'd love to see is after this, I'd love to see your inspirations, because hopefully I'll be back next year. Well, thank you, Faye. And I really want to see what you guys can come up with. Now, Android is a great platform to work on because I love the idea behind build once and then scale out to many platforms. There's been a lot of discussion here in the last week and a half about scale. You've been asking me, how can I scale my business? And I think Android is a fantastic place to begin. The whole idea behind Android is that you build it once and then you add on different components to access different platforms. Just like Android Instant Apps, it's the same app. It's not a different app, just the one execution. And we know we've got over 400 OEM partners who help us deliver across Wear, the phone, the tablet, the TV, and the car. And we only expect these to increase. Android Wear is one of these. We just launched Android Wear 2.0. It's extremely exciting. Who here likes going for a run in the park? Yep, I love running as well. Do you know that one thing that annoys me, though, about going for a jog is having to strap my phone to my arm. I don't know if you notice, I have a bit of like a phone tan. It's really bad. I went up to Mahadi Bahia, and it was very hot and I got burnt, but not there. So I'm excited to let you know that with Wear 2.0, you can actually just take your watch, your Wear watch, and you don't need your phone. So it has a standalone function where you can listen to music, track your run, access the App Store all on the phone all on your watch without taking your phone with you. So this is pretty fundamental. It even has Google Assistant. So you see how we're tying all these things in together. Also, if you have an app today, it will work on Chromebooks. Now, Chromebooks were the #1 best-selling laptop back in Q2 2016. And the great news for you is that we've done all this heavy lifting for you. You don't need to change anything. So your Android apps will now work on Chromebooks. So that's just another way in which we help scale out the platform. Now, who here has seen this picture? Does everyone know what it is? You sure? Okay, good. So Cardboard was Google's first foray into virtual reality. I can't remember which year it was. It was announced by Sundar at I/O. And we gave out a few thousand of these boxes to developers to kind of play with. It's just gone crazy. I mean, there's over, I think it was 5 million Cardboard viewers have been shipped. I think it's even gone beyond that. It's just brilliant. You can create video quite easily. You can upload it to YouTube. And then everyone who has one of these can hold the viewer up with their phone and watch it. It's just excellent. It's such a scalable device. These things are everywhere. So if you are thinking about building in virtual reality, I would definitely begin with Cardboard because it's easier to build 360 video and it's easy to distribute through YouTube. When these first came out, I got my mother-in-law, who was about 80 at the time, to try it on. And we had to hold her because it was on the roller coaster one. She was blown away. Blown away. It was great. So that was Cardboard. Now, moving on, because Google never stays still, we have Daydream. Has anyone here heard of Daydream? A few of you. Excellent. So Daydream is basically the extended version of Cardboard. You might see Cardboard is the level entry product for virtual reality. Daydream is the high-end version. I've worked on some Daydream apps, and they're complex, but they're really rich. When you put on the viewer, it's like you're in another world completely. And particularly the gaming experience is unbelievable. Has anyone seen... never mind, I can't remember the name of the film, but there's a scene in one of the games that's very similar to that. So, why is Daydream different to Cardboard? Daydream only works today on Pixel, but it will be extended out to many more devices as we go along. So it's a high-end premium device. Cardboard will work on any smartphone, whereas Daydream does need a high-performance kit to support the power and processing. One of the downsides or limitations of Cardboard is the fact that you actually need to hold it up to your face. Is anyone like, oh, tired arms? Whereas Daydream actually has a strap, so you can spend a longer immersive experience in it. It's great for watching films, great for long-form gameplay. And where Cardboard is a low-cost, hardware viewer, Daydream has consumer-grade hardware. If you've tried any other VR headsets, Daydream is the most comfortable. It's made out of soft, spongy fabric, so it's very, very easy to use. And this is an example of what the UI looks like. So to wrap up, there are 5 things I want you to remember from today, and you can come and ask me questions afterwards if you wish. Number 1, we love your apps. As I mentioned, the quality and the breadth is just increasing bounds and bounds, and we're really grateful for your investment. Number 2, just remember that 6 billion people connected to a smartphone by 2020. Majority of those on Android. So there's a huge market potential for you. The third one is use the Play console. I can't tell you enough how incredible it is and the insights you can get from that to understand your user behavior, where they're going, where they're from, what device they're on, and you can run tests. It's fantastic. The fourth one is that you can make money with subscriptions. And again, more will be announced about this at I/O. And finally, take advantage of future interaction types and platforms, because if you're looking to scale on Android, or if you're looking to scale your business at all, these are great tools in which to get some future traction. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Are you allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious about, so the growth of the Play ecosystem has been incredible, right? I mean, like when Play started, we're coming up against a giant incumbent in the iTunes store, and now it's gigantic. And I'm just wondering, like, how you think about what the app ecosystem looks like 5, 10 years down the line. Does it make sense to build websites anymore? Or is it all going to be about apps? And what is it going to be like for a user who gets a new phone? Is it just about, are we going to recycle through apps more? Or, I'm going to download some, and a week later I'm going to get rid of them? Stuff I used to do on the open web, I'm really just going to go look for the app. What do you think about that?
That's a great question. So just to repeat, the question was, what will the mobile ecosystem look like in 3 to 5 years? Will there still be apps, or will there still be mobile websites? How are people going to access content? Now, the way I like to look at this question, because we talk about it a lot in my team, is, what drives user behaviour? And we always like to say you should always think about the users first, right? So in my daily life, I have some things I do every single day. And I know that if anyone attended Matt's talk earlier about product management, we talked about the customer user journeys. And we talked about toothbrush user journeys, which you do every day. And we talked about, what was the second word? Critical user journeys, thank you, which are the ones that you don't do very often, but you need to get it right? It's really important. Like maybe transferring money to a different bank account. You don't want to mess that up. You probably don't do it every day. So I think that for apps, you're probably going to download apps for the content which you are most engaged with, that you use on a more frequent basis. And I think this is where we're trying to, you see the morphing of mobile web and apps through Android Instant Apps, where, for example, let's take an example. It's not every day that I will want to look for insurance or new insurance, pet insurance, for example. I've got 2 cats. It's not every day I want new pet insurance, maybe once a year or once every 2 years. I don't want to download an app for cat insurance. So what would be great here is if I could just, scan a link or do a search for pet insurance, and instead I just get a portion of the app. And the reason that apps are important is because they can tap into the phone's operating system. And for example, with Android Instant Apps, because Google knows I'm using my phone, knows who I am, when I go into the pet insurance instant app, it will recognize me, right? So then like filling in the form, it autofills, we talked about that, and then I can pay straight away through Android Pay. So it's a seamless experience that will again tap into the native elements of the phone. I still think there's room for mobile web, of course. People have their preferences, and particularly for emerging markets, that's obviously the faster and cheaper way to go. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? There's one right at the back. I'm not sure how you're going to... Thanks, Matt.
Hi, thank you very much for the lecture. First of all, a lot of people is talking about the personal assistants that's gonna exterminated with the apps in the 5 years. What are your thoughts about this?
When you say personal assistant, what do you mean?
It's like the
voice control?
It's like the Google Now or
okay.
Everything that you can get as a personal assistant that use AI, and you're just gonna ask for a Uber, and you don't need the app of Uber in your
Yeah, look, I think it's a really interesting question. The question was, will there still be apps around in 5 to 10 years, given the progression of, say, AI and voice and assistant technology? I liken it to news, right, in the news industry. If you just have an algorithm deciding what news you read, it kind of takes away some of the fun. There's always going to be a role for editorial, and there's always going to be a role for browsing and recommendations, and I think that's really important. Today, Assistant is fantastic, really good. I do think there's still going to be a role for apps and for app stores, particularly because it's much simpler also to navigate. If you don't know what you're looking for, what can you ask? I wish I had a crystal ball to answer your question, but that's as much as I can tell you.
Good evening. We've built our product, our digital product, fully on web. I would like to know how can we change it in order to have a better mobile experience through making it a Google Play app.
Without knowing too much about your app, I can't say, but I guess this is something we can...
It's a service, it's a software as a service.
Okay, let's take that offline because I can probably give you more insights after this because I've worked in the B2B area as well.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm a new developer, so I have several apps, and as a developer, I'm focused on building a great product, you know. And every time I have to launch something new, I have many doubts about what's the best way to market this app, because if people don't find my app, people won't download it, whatever. So you talk about boosting an app with ads, and I really like it, the early access. It might be a good way, but I wanted you to talk a little bit more what you think that small developers like me can do to market better our apps.
Good question. What can small developers do to market their apps better? So the first thing you can do, and I'm deadly serious here, is build a really high quality app. Okay, it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are, right? Even big companies can make bad apps. The most important thing is to invest in the quality. And by quality, I mean things like it doesn't crash, it doesn't hang. The design is really nice, it's material design. Navigation makes sense, right? It doesn't boot you off to a mobile website at some point where you can't return from. That it's localized to the language of the customers you're servicing, that it uses Play Billing, you don't have to fill in long forms, that it uses smart lock, so I only have to log in once and never again because that's a pain. So a high quality app will get better star ratings. The more star ratings you have, the more you'll be discoverable because we reward quality. So if there's one thing I can say you should definitely focus on before anything else, before you think about buying customers through user acquisition, it's ensuring the quality is right.
So hi, we've talked a lot about Android instant apps and also going back to install, but what about progressive web apps and how do they fit on Google Play?
Great question. What about progressive web apps? Does everyone know what a progressive web app is? A few people, cool. I'm sure Ryan, who's not here right now, Ryan is talking about this probably tomorrow or the next day, so you should definitely attend his session and see what he says. But basically, progressive web app is a function where you can, just say the person's on their mobile phone, they're looking at your mobile website, right? You can have a little notification saying, add this to your home screen. And you press on it, and then an icon for your mobile website gets put on the user's phone home screen. Now, it is still a mobile website, but it just lives on the user's home screen. It does have some portion of offline, but it's not fully offline like a native app is. A native app will actually leverage and make use of the functions inside the phone operating system, which progressive web apps today can't do. You can do a lot more around notifications on native apps, which you can't do on PWA. You can do basic notifications, but you can't do some really rich things like, for example, The Guardian, during the US election, they had a live notification of the results, right? It was like Hillary and Donald, little characters on the screen, on the front screen of the notification, like edging closer and closer. So some of the richer stuff you can't do. But if you have no Android developers, right, if you have a big web team of engineers but no Android developers, this is a good option for you. And also you can't put them through the Play Store, which is often another question I get asked.
Hi, Tamsin. I would like to ask you something more related to the analytics side. So when we use the developer console, currently we are able to measure like the user acquisition over across many channels or
Countries, yep.
installs, videos, so on. But we're still not able to measure the retention side and also the ROI, and if this, the users, they are indeed engaging with the app or not, and if they are buying inside of the app. How come Google can help us with that? Because we have the Google Analytics for websites that help us understand these specific metrics, but we still don't have this in the developer console.
Very good question. So the question was, today, what's your name?
Natasha.
Today, Natasha can see in her Android app, she can see user acquisition. So from someone clicking on the Play Store listing to installing. She can see that by country and by channel, but she can't see retention statistics or churn. She also wants to see how many people are buying and that kind of information. So I would strongly suggest you watch the I/O session on making data work for you on Google Play. Aside from that, I'd encourage you to attend Kelly's session tomorrow on Google Analytics, because you can integrate Google Analytics into your app, and then you can set up goals, which include purchase. Using the Google Developer Console, you can also still see purchases as well. I can take you through it afterwards if you wish. But yeah, by and large, my best advice for you at the moment would be watch the I/O session, because it will be, I think it will meet your needs. Ooh,
Okay, just real quick, because I got to go pee. Sorry. I'm sure I'm not the only one here.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm sorry. I just want to make a joke. Sorry. All right.
Does this mean your question is going to be short?
That's right.
Good.
It will. I'm motivated this time. So I have a lot. Unfortunately, my questions are a little bit more technical about augmented reality, web, mobile. I mean, it's an ecosystem of many different technologies. That right now you have to have a pretty big team or outsource a lot or use Upwork or something to be able to get stuff through the door, right? And so this is a good thing for a lot of small fish, I think, maybe. I'm learning mobile web technologies right now, interested in building a web app using maybe some JavaScript framework just to get an MVP out. But I like the idea, the accessibility of mobile apps. I think it's pretty cool because I can access it. It's something that it's still in the World Wide Web, right? And that's something that I think is pretty cool. So the question is, I use HTML, CSS, SAS, these kind of things a lot when I'm building a site or just thinking about a presentation, building a business concept. I like to use, kind of the rudimentary elements of web development. And then, I have not even thought about Android yet. So the question is, how does this whole ecosystem of developers, web developers, how do they fit into building an Android app? Is there a transpiler available? Are we going to have to be thinking about just-in-time compiling and thinking about new WebAssembly modules to fit into this? I mean, can we tack, literally like thumbtack or maybe pushpin tack a website onto a VR? Can we do that? I mean, is it possible to have a virtualization?
Everything is
of that?
technically possible, but I would highly discourage you from doing that.
Okay.
Because I guess if you think about it, there are heaps of apps in the market today who are simply a website with a shell of Android. That's your quickest way to get on the store. But it's a bad user experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Terrible. For example, user might be waiting for some web API calls to come back and they're left hanging. It doesn't work offline. You can't do any customization.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare, right? So if you're going to do something, you should do it properly. That's our view. And
It's-
we've got heaps and heaps of tools
Sure.
on developer.android.com
Okay.
or DAC. So go to developer.android.com. There are so many resources for developers. There are toolkits, there are samples. Every single new platform that we release, we roll out support guides, right?
Good.
And GitHub has heaps of resources you can use
I was
to,
gonna- yeah, I
to
was gonna
again, you know, find out what other people are doing, share samples, etc.
Exactly. I want. So I understand maybe a little bit that this is a marketplace, which is really cool, really awesome. It's something that I think is interesting. And I wanted to ask you, interfacing between maybe different communities online. GitHub is one, I think right here we're touching maybe this line between GitHub and the Android market right now. I mean, if they're developers here, they know what GitHub is, they know what a GitHub issue is, they know about the process of email lists and building a product, open source and things like that. And I wanted to know what your stance or maybe what Google's perspective is on this experience of prototyping. Is there going to be this kind of collaboration with early testers? What's the line between GitHub and the open source community and perhaps a closed market like Android?
Just to be clear, Android is not a closed market. So Android is an
Okay.
open
Good.
ecosystem.
Cool.
And for you to test your MVPs, you can do this in various ways. So I touched on this, I think the other day, but the alpha beta communities, if you already have customers, is a great way to test your early product. Otherwise, if you have no customers, early access is another way to test your product. We discussed in a session earlier today, if you don't even want to build anything, there are many ways to test a product without doing any engineering resource. Smoke and mirrors. You can draw pictures, you can give diagrams. There are many ways to test new products without building anything.
Thank you very much for
That's
that.
okay.
All right.
Any other questions? Fabulous. I'll hand back to Faye to wrap up. Or do you need to wrap up? I could just say goodbye.
Thank you so much. And to invite you guys to come back, we have still events on every day of this week except for Friday because we leave for holidays, right? So come back and enjoy. And I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much for engaging and participating. Good night.